Oh, me, oh, my.
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. It feels good to be in studio, finally. And I get to sit here across from me, John the Doc Macaroon. I am Jason Jarvie. How's it going, John?
Oh, I see how it goes, Jason. You only want to show up here when the Lions win. The first 2 weeks, you didn't really want to break down the awful performances of the hometown Lions. But when they defeat one of the great all-time teams, you show up here and you're excited and you're happy, ready to record, huh?
I mean, if you really want to, we can go back over and we can discuss those games. I know. I know. Week one, I was demoralized in just watching that game. Week two, you know, it was a lot of the same, and it was what we've seen out of the Lions before, that they get behind early in games, and then they bring it back, and they make it so close, and then they just can't finish it.
What was awesome about the performance Sunday night was the nation got to see the Lions perform at a high level. They got to see the GOAT, Tom Brady, look like a guy that should be 1 foot into retirement. The Lions beat up the New England Patriots on the offensive line, across the defensive line. Stafford played great. And did you know that the Detroit Lions held the football offensively for almost 39 minutes? Almost 40 minutes of the game they had the ball.
The offense was out there the entire time. Tom Brady didn't have a chance to pick apart our defense.
It was so awesome to see the Lions perform that well. How surprised were you at that performance? Because, you know, going into the game, I kind of set up Adam and said, look, the Jags were able to kind of expose that Patriots defense. There's a lot of players on that New England team that aren't playing. They don't look right in September. They typically don't play well. I didn't go out and say that they were going to win because I'm obviously skeptical of the Lions always, and I don't want to get my hopes up, but I felt like the Lions could play well. I didn't feel like it was going to be a blowout, but what was your thoughts going into the game about how competitive it could be?
I definitely thought that the Lions were going to come out and be competitive, but I just didn't think that it would be enough, because over the first 2 weeks, I felt like our fears were being confirmed, that this team just didn't have enough talent on it to really make a push this season. And they come out last night, and it's just, where was this team the first 2 weeks?
And I think that what we saw was maybe the effects of everybody talking about the team quitting, everybody talking about the team not liking Matt Patricia. You did see a little bit difference. You're starting to hear that Matt Patricia's easing up just a tad on the practices. He's not as demonic and as strict. He's listening a little bit more to the players. And sometimes when you're new, and I had said this in the previews going up to the season, that the first handful of games were going to be rough, because the team had to learn the system. It was going to take time for everything to acclimate, but that it would go forward and that you would see the remnants of the New England Patriots. And quite shockingly, what we saw was the numbers skewed in the favor of the Detroit Lions. Everybody thought, wow, if the numbers were going to look like that it would be the New England Patriots with all the time of possession, Sony Michel running the ball, Tom Brady picking apart the Lions defense with Rob Gronkowski. But it just seemed like finally a coach like Matt Patricia, who knew the system coming in, who knew a lot about the Patriots, it was great to see that he took advantage of it, and the Lions were one step ahead of the Patriots all night. It just seemed like the Patriots were in mud all game long. They never really got into gear until Matthew Stafford turned the ball over. Then there was a little bit more momentum, but then the defense stepped up and played really well. They pressured Tom Brady. They did not let him do a whole heck of a lot, but I'll say this. I would have really liked to have seen New England with a Patrick Chung, with a Josh Gordon on the team and to see what that would have looked like, because that looked like a performance that the New England Patriots mailed in. They didn't look like they came 100% ready to play. But at least for one thing, though, I'll say this. The Lions stepped up, national TV, and they're 1-2, and they beat a team that wasn't really capable of winning on that night. And hey, take the wins wherever you can get it.
Yeah, and I don't want to take everything away from the Lions, because this is a huge win for them. If you lose this game, it would be another game on national television that you just get embarrassed. You'd be 0-3 in an NFC North that right now it looks a little shaky between the Vikings and the Packers, all standing at like 1-1-1. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen going forward. Before the game, I was even telling my wife that I would almost be upset if the Lions did win today, because I don't know what they are. It's so much up in the air. I expected them to lose that game, because it wasn't just because of how they are and what they are as a team. It's because they're going up against the Patriots, and winning that game just throws everything out the window. It's just, what are they? Are they this team who was able to methodically break down the Patriots, or are they the team that gets blown out on national television against the New York Jets? How much of it is the players that the Patriots didn't have? How much of it is that, that Matt Patricia, he may not know the game plan, and I'm not going to say that he knew the plays that were coming in, but he definitely, he's been there. He'd been there for years, and a lot of those guys were his players, so he knew strengths and weaknesses. It did even, I did notice watching the game, and with Stafford being mic'd up, some of his pre-game calls or pre-snap calls, it sounded like he kind of had an idea where linebackers were going. It seemed like he knew where blitzes were coming. And I wonder what kind of a factor that plays in the game. Because honestly, now in this season, I think we've arguably seen the worst game the Lions have played in the recent history. And I would go as far to say this is probably the most complete game I've seen the Lions play, like from front to back. Now, I've seen games where they've blown teams out. I remember the Broncos game where they blew them out like 47, like to like nothing. And I don't call that a complete game. This is a complete game where they dominated the Patriots from front to back.
How much credit do you give the Lions for that performance? Because obviously people are talking about, well, New England, now they're starting to kind of make excuses for the Patriots, saying, well, in September, they don't play as well. There's some injuries. It takes time for things to acclimate. But do you think New England's going to finish with a winning record and will give more credit for the Lions for that victory? The Lions did do a lot of good things well, but at the same time, New England didn't play well at all. They kind of played like a Lions game where a lot of mistakes, they just didn't get things going offensively, a lot of 3-and-outs, and it just seemed like a team that was kind of going through the motions. How much credit do you give the Detroit Lions for that performance?
I think you have to give them a ton of credit, because that was a defensive line playing without Ziggy Ansah or Kerry Hyder. So they were able to contain the run game and give a ton of credit to the defensive backs that they were able they did their job. And the Patriots, they're going to really have to figure out, hopefully getting Julian Edelman and Josh Gordon into their system. Once Edelman's suspension's up and Gordon gets back off of his injury, that their only weapon right now is Rob Gronkowski. The past 2 weeks for the Patriots, the game plan has been take Rob Gronkowski out and make Philip Dorsett and Cordero Patterson beat you, and that's what the Lions did. They made Tom Brady have to go to all of his secondary and his third weapons that he wasn't able to do what he wanted to do.
And finally, we can celebrate, Jason. It's over. Throughout the course of this entire podcast, do you believe that? The first time the Lions have had a 100-yard rusher in the entire history of this Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Isn't that crazy?
Can we stop talking about it now?
Kerryon Johnson, he did it, 101 yards. He played so well. The offensive line blocked. And I guess, we were all critical of TJ Lang, but his impact when he was there and healthy, wow. It solidified that offensive line. It kind of brought the unit together, and everybody played well on that offensive line. Taylor Decker, Ragnow, TJ Lang. Adam was there, at Ford Field, and he said, wow, the sheer visual of the offensive line creating holes that big was so awesome that Kerryon Johnson, LeGarrette Blount, they were just able to do some things, and it was just nice to see the offensive line have a push forward where, Kerryon Johnson could get a couple yards into the backfield and not get tackled. It was great. He made a push forward, and he got 100 yards. That GIF was great of all the running backs, giving him love when he finally did it, and you could sense the crowd was just kind of catching on, and when he was around 86 yards and he finally did it, everybody erupted. Finally, the Detroit Lions have a 100-yard rusher. It's just, finally they can put that behind them.
I was just the entire game, when he got to 50 yards, I'm like, they just kind of keep feeding the ball. And yeah, once he hit 86, I was keeping a running tally in my head, he lost a yard, and then is he going to get there? And I'm just so done hearing that narrative. And, I know that the sportscasters had to do it. And I think they even said it themselves, Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth, is, oh, I know you guys are probably tired of hearing this. Yeah, we are very tired of hearing it. Because we have so much other things that are going wrong with our team, you don't have to keep bringing up this thing.
Now,
and what did I say week one? I said week one, give Kerryon Johnson the ball more.
Yes, give him the ball more. You saw the scheme utilize his own running a little bit better. It looked different. Jim Bob Cooter looked like he had a game plan that was definitely effective, and I guess maybe when you have TJ Lang back, when you have more of the unit you want, you can do a little bit more. It didn't seem like they were just being so selfish and trying to ram the ball down the opponent's throat, but when you create holes, man, that makes it easier for the offense to do some things. Matthew Stafford was able to shake off defenders and make the safeties of the Patriots look silly. That play to Marvin Jones, the New England Patriots safety, made a key mistake, and it was basically simple pitch and catch. He was wide open. Matthew Stafford had a decent game, and he managed the game very well. He looked like a confident quarterback that knew what he was doing. But here's the thing that everybody's going to talk about. Everyone's excited about the performance. Everybody's excited about what the Lions were able to do. But can they sustain it, Jason? Will we see the team revert back to playing poorly on the road versus Dallas? I mean, right now, sitting here recording, I'm confident that they can win. Right now, 85% of the supporters at Detroit Podcast voted that they believe the Lions are going to go into Dallas and defeat the Cowboys. But you and I would not be surprised if they reverted back and had penalties, if Kerryon Johnson couldn't get past the line of scrimmage, if there were a lot of mistakes, if Dak Prescott throws for 300 yards, because right now everyone's looking at that Dallas Cowboy offense and going, what the hell's going on? Right now, they're poised for a victory, but they're a favorite right now.
I look at the Cowboys right now. They are in a very similar position as the Patriots were coming into this week, where you would think that the Cowboys should be favorited in this game because
you think so?
They should be favorited. This should be. That's the key word. Just like the Patriots were favored going into this game, but I think the Cowboys, no Des Bryant anymore, no Jason Witten. I think they're a team that's searching for their identity, and they seem like another one-dimensional offense where you have Ezekiel Elliott, who is a very, very good running back. If the Lions can shut down Zeke Elliott and force Dak Prescott to have to beat them,
there's a chance to win the game. And I just want to see them play well. That's all I asked for prior to the game versus the Patriots was just please play well. Not a lot of penalties, not a lot of stupid mistakes. Obviously, Agnew, snake bitten again. Every time he has a decent return, there's a block in the back, but everything kind of clicked versus the Patriots and it kind of gave everybody renewed hope that, you know what, if the Lions can kind of pick things up, get better in a lot of areas, that's a team that if they play like that or similar to week in, week out, or very close to it, that's a team that can get some wins, maybe even more than 7. I mean, I think right now a lot of fans are at least happy that they're not probably going to be a 5-win team, but this team can do some things if it comes together and that defensive scheme continues to pressure quarterbacks and allow some turnovers. That team could do some things, especially in a division that's up in the air a little bit right now with, I think, the Bears at the top of the division at 2-1.
Yep.
That the Lions team could do it. I mean, we could get our hopes up legitimately that this Lions team, this team maybe could squeak in to the postseason now that maybe if we get one more injury, I mean, at the time of this recording, Jimmy G's out for the year with a torn ACL. Maybe you get another key injury to the Bears or the Patriots or Kirk Cousins, or they continue to struggle after a terrible performance versus Buffalo. You might be able to eke out some close wins and maybe sneak into that 6th spot as a wild card. A home playoff game? Probably not likely. I think they could squeeze into maybe the ceiling for this team being a 6 seed? I think it could happen.
This game really did give a glimpse into what the Lions could be. This is what we've been saying ever since Matthew Stafford got here is what would he be? Because he's always had the weapons vertically. He's always had people to throw to. What would he be with a running game? And this is probably one of the first games ever. I mean, even when we had Javid Best and when he was actually playing well, this is the first time that I can actually say that I've seen the Lions open up holes. I've never seen our offensive line be able to open up holes. And every run that we make, it always seems you might get 1 or 2 in a game that go for 10 or 15 yards, and everything else is just, into the back of the line. And if we get any gain, it's because the running back is like bouncing completely out. This was a game where you saw offensive line able to open up holes, and guys like Kerryon Johnson, like Garrett Blount, the first time that they're really getting met by any defender is once they're 3 to 5 yards, into past the line of scrimmage. So if we could have that consistently, you don't have to get 100 yards every game, but when you have that threat of a run game, it makes defenses have to respect that. And it allows you to, before that Marvin Jones touchdown, I know Chris Collinsworth he was pretty much calling it for like a half hour, but it's like, this is why you have a run game. It's so you set up the play action. And what happened? You killed the team with a play action.
Now, I'm going to say this. If the Lions do turn it around and they're a team that gets on a winning streak and they play well and they rally around Matt Patricia.
You're going to take all credit for it.
No, I'm going to give the credit to one guy and one guy alone, LeGarrette Blount. That hit that he delivered week 2.
Not George Lopez?
Not George Lopez. No, that was just the start. Now, if it happens, I'll definitely bring it up again. That would be awesome. But LeGarrette Blount could be the guy, the glue guy, because what was the talk in the early part of preseason and training camp? That these guys maybe weren't buying into such rigorous training, the 2-hour practices, the grind, the difference of attitude between Matt Patricia and Jim Caldwell. But then you had a guy who's an outsider, but familiar with Matt Patricia, who knows what he's expecting. LeGarrette Blount, week 2, stood up for Matthew Stafford and kind of delivered what I think this team could need as rocket fuel. And that's swagger. That's a presence. That's like, hey, you're not going to mess with us. We're collectively a unit that, hey, if you mess with one guy, our top guy, we're going to be like rabid dogs and we're going to attack. And that hit could have been a rallying cry for a team that was desperately looking for leadership and something. And if they do, in fact, turn it around for the Detroit Lions, that hit could be one that could be replayed for a million times.
You might be taking that a little too far, but hey, if we can revisit it if we're, in week 17 and we're talking about the Lions in the playoffs.
Oh, man, that'd be so great if we can get excited. I do think there's a strong chance.
We can't get that excited. This is one win. They're still 1-2.
Yeah, I think that LeGarrette Blount, Theo Riddick, Kerryon Johnson, that's a core that you can work with, and you can do some things with Theo Riddick on third down, with LeGarrette Blount getting those 4 and 5 yards.
I don't want Theo Riddick on third down.
You want him more?
No, I want Kerryon Johnson 1, 2, and 3. If you want to make Theo Riddick a wide receiver again, make him the Tyreek Hill type player, because that's what he was. That's what he was in college. He was the running back / wide receiver.
All right, so what do you think about this week with Dallas? Do you give them a strong chance?
I give them as good a chance as any week. I think that they're going to, I at least hope that they're going to go in there and come off this high. I guess you could say that there's the possibility that they gave everything they got to the Patriots and we may just get a big letdown this week. But I would probably lean more towards they're going to go into Dallas and do everything that they can to try and continue the success that they had on Sunday night.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to call it. I think it's a victory for the Lions. They keep this going. I think that the talent discrepancy between the Lions and the Cowboys sways in the favor of the Detroit Lions, and I don't think that the talent that Dallas brings to the table right now, like you said, with the absence of some key players that have gone now, I don't think that it's going to be that difficult to go in there and maybe put a hurting on Dallas. I think they can play well, avoid the mistakes, and
you got to get out to an early lead too. That was a huge thing this week with the Patriots, is that you got up early. Aside from, you saw a little bit of the old Lions coming out of halftime. You get the ball, and I'm like, you have to actually do something here. And they go and turn over the ball. They were able to answer after the Patriots scored, but you have to get that lead, and you have to step on the throat, man.
Bottom line, they win?
Yes.
Yes, they do, baby. 2-2. I like it. Then they come home versus Green Bay. I think it's a great game, great opportunity to play well and to get ahead. I think there's a strong chance that this team could be around that 8-8, 9-7 team if things go right, if this could be a rallying cry. Like Garrett Blount week 2, the players rallying around Matt Patricia, him easing up a little bit, taking into account the fact that you have to have a relationship with your players. And if JBC can continue to evolve that running game into something that we saw as close to what we saw on Sunday, I'm very, very happy. The offensive line is very key, and that's why they put the resources, is to see more performances like we saw on Sunday. And hey, the nation got to see the Lions when everybody thought they would get blown out, when everybody thought Tom Terrific was going to come in here and destroy the Lions. The whole nation, Sunday night primetime, got to see that, and that's what I like to see, some swagger.
Tirico is even joking in the pregame. He's like, is anybody going to give the Lions a chance in this one? And nobody did. They all picked Patriots.
All picked Patriots, and that's a smart thing to do because, again, as easy as we are smoothly talking about the Lions turning the page, romanticizing LeGarrette Blount's hit, talking about the Lions maybe in the playoffs, we all know we're all just 60 minutes away from watching the Lions revert back to same old Lions with penalties, mistakes, Stafford playing bad, Kerryon Johnson maybe doing some things he's not supposed to do as a rookie, LeGarrette Blount not playing well. We are not yet allowed to be entitled to expect wins, but if they do well, at least we can see what the outcome could be. If the Lions play at their peak performance, they can compete with the big dogs, and that's all you could ask for. Right now, 3 games into Matt Patricia is, hey, consistently go out there and perform. Play like a football team. That would be great. That's all we could ask for, right?
That's all you can ask for.
All right, let's take our first time out. You and I got to take a critical look at Michigan State because they won versus Indiana. They ran a trick play, but a lot of people walked away from that game disappointed and not happy, and they're devaluing Michigan State going forward based upon some concerns in one area group, and we'll talk about that in the second half of this podcast. Jason, I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project in September of 2013, we were looking for a great place to host all of our recorded audio, and thank goodness we found Podomatic. Why do we use them? Super easy when we record these fun podcasts, have great interviews, cover sports, and collect quality audio. It takes literally 5 minutes to put up the audio. Real quick, super easy. All the hosts here can take their audio and upload it to Podomatic so that listeners and supporters can hear it not only in Michigan, but across the United States and even overseas. If you're looking to start a brand new project, a brand new podcast, all the hosts here on the network, we're going to recommend one host site and one host site alone, Podomatic.com.
We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll.
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Guess how many views this song has on YouTube?
Probably like millions and millions.
Take a guess. How many?
I'll go with around 300 million.
No, a little bit less. 47,555,805 views on this video.
Such a good song.
It is a good song. I like the joke.
I've been very pessimistic with the radio lately.
Okay.
Because I owe it on all the stations. I hear all the same songs. And I want to give a shout out to 94.7 WCSX oldies. I'm not that old, but I turn on that station and something's always good. And I remember turning that on and was like, yeah, I'm going to rock out on the way home.
Well, I don't know if you paid attention, Jason, but we now have a 24-hour dedicated voicemail line that anyone can call, 248-579-8686. That's 248-579-8686. Talking all Detroit sports, Michigan State. Feel free, leave a voicemail, we'll play it. And the first ones that came in after the loss to the 49ers, Jason, if you heard the last Doc and Jock, holy cow, they came in strong. And a couple more were positive that came in this week, so very good stuff there. Feel free, leave a voicemail. We play it all. It's very fun and interactive. And somebody has already chimed in. Kingslayers on Twitter said, no doubt, that was the turning point referencing my thought that LeGarrette Blount's penalty could be the greatest penalty ever taken by a Detroit Lion. We'll see. All right, Jason, I'm glad to have you here in this office, and it's been a while because of the fact that we haven't had a chance to break down the Michigan State Spartans. I know you and I are taking a critical look, and we see some concerns because Brian Lewerke is not performing at the level that we think he should, especially with the wide receivers that he has. We've seen now L.J. Scott basically lose his job to Hayward, who's very productive and has the ability to do some things, break tackles.
They had
and
a host
yards.
of running backs. I mean, I love L.J. Scott, and I know he is dealing with some injuries, but they got a bunch of people behind him.
That's
Hayward, you got the Jefferson kid, you got Naylor.
Naylor with the 75-yard touchdown was awesome. So there's some good things there, but the big concern that people are talking about is not Lewerke. He's doing okay, but he's also making mistakes and missing reads at a level that we're a little bit concerned about. But everybody's talking about it. That offensive line is really struggling right now for Michigan State. The defensive line of Indiana was able to pressure Lewerke quite a bit, and people are now going, whoa. If that offensive line doesn't improve going forward, fine. In a game versus Indiana, where you have a little bit more of a, you have more talent, you have better people on the field, against the opponents like Michigan, Ohio State, coming up and against big-time opponents, you can't play like that across the offensive line where there's mistakes, where your running backs don't have the opportunity to find any holes. So that offensive line was a concern. Everybody saw it. What'd you take away from it, and what's going on?
Obviously, I feel like always, every season, the Michigan State Spartans offensive line, it seems to come together, later in the season, and it takes them a little while. They always have, solid pieces, but I think it takes them a couple weeks to actually finally get in the groove. And I think this Indiana game might be a wake-up call that, hey, this is Big Ten season has started now. You get a little bit of a reprieve going up against Central Michigan next week, but after that, what is it? Is it Penn State after Central Michigan?
Ooh, I gotta look it up. Let's find out.
I think Penn State is their next big opponent coming up. There might be another game in between there, but I think they'll be ready, and I think the players will move up the standard. My bigger concern, though, is the offensive play calling. Dave Warner.
Yeah,
it's just
back again.
I thought after last year that maybe we wouldn't have to talk about this again. The season before that, we were talking about Mark D'Antonio and if he's done and if he's on the hot seat. You have the good season last year. Even though we're sitting now at 2-1, it doesn't feel good.
Oh, baby, here's how it shakes out. Central this Saturday, then the following Saturday, 10-6, Northwestern comes to East Lansing, then ahead of the Michigan State game, 10-13, October 13th, Michigan State goes on the road versus Penn State, where Michigan plays Wisconsin. Oh my gosh, that might be a battle of attrition when October 20th hits, where Michigan and Michigan State. Some people are saying, well, that game has an opportunity to be a big-time scoring game, or it could be like a 12-9 kind of game where both teams don't do a whole heck of a lot, especially if they're both banged up from playing massive opponents the week prior. But I do think I'm happy that Michigan State had the bye week to get some more players back. They did seem like they were a little bit crisper, but you're absolutely right. Dave Warner is a concern because of the fact that in the red zone, there's some concerns. There's some concerns about the execution of the running game, key situations in which Michigan State doesn't call the right play, and it just seems like that everybody's talking about Michigan and Michigan State's offense being antiquated, that they're continuing to run rollouts from the eye. Like, that's a play that we've all seen from like the 80s. You know, a rollout from the eye. I mean, I think Shea on the Monday mashup, which airs every Monday on the network, he was livid, screaming, going, and he's a strong state supporter as well. We're adding here to the network state supporters, so that's a good thing. But he said, if I see that play again, another formation where it's just the same traditional formation, in a game where a lot of teams spread them out 5 wide, kind of expose the defense a little bit, try and help out your offense by doing some things. But it just seems like Michigan State's offense is really stuck in the 90s, 2000s, where a lot of these teams are going 5 wide, up tempo, and are doing a lot more things than Michigan State's doing. And I think,
we're
seeing
me.
it.
And it's not just Michigan State. It is Michigan too.
Yeah.
We suffer from the same problem. And this is maybe it's a little bit of bias, but I think it actually is some truth that I think Michigan State has more weapons on the receiving end. You have Felton Davis, you have Cody White, who's the other guy? Darius Stewart. I mean, you have wide receivers who can go out there and catch the ball. In Michigan, you have Donovan Peoples-Jones, even though I think the guy's overrated. You have a host of tight ends, and you have a running back in Karan Higdon, who that guy is going to play on Sunday. I think Higdon's by the time he leaves Michigan, he's going to be one of the better running backs coming out of University of Michigan.
How impressed have you been with Michigan, what they've done? Do you give them credit for destroying weaker opponents?
I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what I've always wanted Michigan State to do against opponents like Utah State. I want you to go out there and destroy those teams. Yeah, Nebraska may not be that good. I watched that game for about 15 minutes, and it was just like, this isn't going to be a good game. This is
Similarly, Nebraska's not that good, so you took advantage of a team that's in transition. You don't have anywhere near the caliber of player that Scott Frost is going to want. And I like the fact that Michigan took advantage of Scott Frost's comment saying that back in the UCF days that he was able to out-hit and kind of out-tough the Wolverines. And hey, psychological factors play a part, and they wanted to send a message, and that's why they put a hurting on Nebraska. And they all pointed it out and said, hey, we were pretty much tougher today, and we handled our business. But now, the tests are coming. The tests are coming for the University of Michigan, and it's going to start with Wisconsin in a couple of weeks. I can't wait to see it because I will be there in the press box as the Wolverines have extended the love to the doc as opposed to the alma mater, which has yet to reply to an email. So it's kind of funny.
The lesser team has to extend,
yeah,
right?
exactly, right?
Just how we're working our way up with the Tigers.
Exactly. The opportunity for all the teams that struggled has just allowed a crack in the foundation for the DSP to show up everywhere and to cover sports, so it's been a good thing. But do you see Michigan State turning around offensively? Do you see them getting better? Because the key argument that people will send to us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, people can message you on Twitter at Jarvie the King. They'll say, look, Michigan State always gets better. They tend to figure out wrinkles, figure out some of the ways to, shore up the cracks as the season progresses. Do you see that with this team? Do you see the offensive line getting better? Or is it realistic to say, take a step back, like the doc had said in the preseason, that maybe this year is a year of learning and growth, and 2019 is the year where all this youthful talent can peak and handle their business going forward? Is this a year where if they went 8-4, how upset would you be?
I mean, I wouldn't be too upset just because there's so many. I feel like Ohio State is the team to beat in this conference.
Yeah, they're nowhere near.
I mean,
right?
And if Michigan State were to somehow go in and shock Ohio State, it would be one of those like, I don't know how they did it. I mean, I don't understand how Ohio State lost to them. So it's like this season, I just want them to. I want to see growth. I want to see them get better. And unfortunately, I think I don't want them to get stunted by Dave Warner in this offense because you have a ton of talent on this offense. And I think Lewerke's a good quarterback. You need to open it up for him. You need to give him some options. You don't have to run a straight spread offense, but you need to, put 4 wide receivers out there.
Do you think there's anything to the notion that maybe they're saving it for the big dogs and that versus Indiana, you only have certain packages, that versus Ohio State, versus Michigan, they'll have even more tricks than just fake field goals? You think fake punts, they'll air it out, they'll do 4 and 5 wide?
Unfortunately,
they're practicing it now, but this will implement it and put it in and install it around the time of the big dogs?
I don't see it. I think they'll get better at what they're doing. And I think what they do is proven that you can have success doing what they do. In the seasons where we've won Big Ten championships, the offense wasn't that much different. We still were behind a power run team, and the pass always came second. So they're going to get better. I think there's too much talent on this offense that they won't at least figure out what they're doing. But the creativeness, the spark on offense that we'd like to see, I just don't see that coming this year, and I'm not sure if I would see it coming next year either.
Okay, just surveying the landscape across college football, you and I really haven't talked about it too in-depthly, but what do you think about how Ohio State handled Urban Meyer? He's back. He's basically, everyone is calling him a liar. They're looking through the facts of the case, and they're saying, look, all signs point to the fact that he knew more than what he let on, that Ohio State kind of did a sham investigation, and that because of the fact that he's a winning coach, because of the fact he brings in so much money, that they turned a blind eye to the stuff that he was doing in terms of reporting and keeping a guy on staff that was basically toxic to himself and to Ohio State and potentially to his wife. So do you think that in terms of what Ohio State did, is it really that bad? Have they sold their integrity for winning? And to relay it to our teams, if it meant, and I've asked this to you before, but today, if it meant for the next 3 years, State would get to the playoff, would win 11 games, go 11-1, would look like Alabama week in, week out, where they got 2 and 3 quarterbacks that look awesome, but you find out 4 years after the fact that some coaches were doing some bad things, some coaches and players were having relationships that were not proper, maybe paying players, or maybe situations where a player was abusive to a girlfriend or a coach was abusive to his ex. If that became more toxic and it was proven that Mark D'Antonio knew about some stuff, would you want a coach like that heading Michigan State if you knew it brought winning? It brings winning.
I think
we're seeing championships.
There are certain things. I think this instance with their whole Urban Meyer issue, I think when it crosses the line of actually
not reporting abusive stuff,
and not even there's such a gray area in the NCAA. Like, he didn't commit a crime. I mean, these are. I'm not being biased. I'm not trying to make excuses. This is fact. This is, the guy didn't commit a crime. He didn't cheat in a football game, at least that we know of right now. He fired the guy when he knew, in air quotation marks, that there was abuse. So I don't know. It's so hard to really judge. I know everybody wants to, you want it to be black and white, but so much of this stuff is such a gray area. The stuff like you hear about in Louisville with Rick Pitino and all the stuff going on there, that's where, that crosses the line, where there's escorts being paid and secret parties. And
I had said that my thinking is, look, I can take all that, paying players, some rules with grades, stuff like that. I can accept that. But when it comes to domestic violence, sexual assaults, real criminal activity outside of paying athletes and some grade stuff and keeping them eligibility rules, paying players, stuff like that, I can tolerate if it was found out that D'Antonio did it. But if I found out that D'Antonio did not report crimes or was deleting text messages that showed that one of his staffers was abusing people, definitely no. So that's where my line is drawn, is that if the athletes are doing some things to stay eligible or get some money in their pocket, I'm okay with it. But criminal activity, not reporting things right away, even if it's somebody that's a top level in your organization, you got to report it, you got to handle it, you got to get rid of the guy back in 2009 and keep him away from your institution. So that's where I draw the line. But I would take it. I would be okay if Mark D'Antonio paid some players and we found out that, he went to a psychology professor and said, look, Mr. Jefferson here, I know he's getting a 1.5. Can you just bump it up to a 2 and keep him eligible, really help him out? It might help him go to the next level and da-da-da. If that happened, I'd turn a blind eye and not even think twice about it. Not even think twice. I wouldn't even care.
I don't know. It's hard. It's tough.
Because that others are doing it. Others are doing it.
I'm glad that I don't have to make that decision right now.
Exactly.
Because the Spartans are what they are.
Exactly.
A middling team.
8-9 wins from what you see now?
I would say it. I don't know. If they get to 7, I'd be like, okay, they probably still go to a bowl game. Anything less than 7, you're talking about a failure of a season.
Now, before we get out of here, I got to touch on this because you and I both looked at the video. It's disgusting. I'm 4 weeks away from my yearly physical, and I told my wife, I'm like, honey, this year in 2018, we ate out a lot. We ate out a ton in terms of people preparing our foods and things like that. I'm much more in favor of my wife cooking, knowing I'm even more in favor of me going out and preparing food because I just can't handle the thought of a disgruntled employee spitting on my pizza. That video, I posted it, and I kind of went on to other things in regards to Pistons Media Day, but you played it, and I saw it, and it's so right up in your face. The guy is just right there with the pizza, spitting on it. Hot loogie in your food. It just, I can't legitimately, and I like hamburgers. I like Wendy's hamburgers. I like Five Guys. I like burgers. I like eating out, but I haven't been feeling great after I eat out anywhere lately. And I'm just like, what?
That's just because you're getting old.
I'm getting old, right? You don't feel good eating that stuff anymore. I'm eating salad with tuna, and I'm eating this apricots and protein bars and a bunch of coffee. And I'm like, you know what? I am getting conditioned to when I want to turn into a McDonald's and get a large French fry. I still have from time to time, as I posted, but I'm turning away more often thinking, who's putting what in my food? It's so disgusting. Does that change your habits? Because I think you ate a burrito before you got here. You're a burrito guy.
The thing about that place, though, Qdoba and Chipotle, you see your food be made right in front of you.
Yeah, see, I can't handle it. What do you think of people who do that? That's so wrong.
It's wrong.
To do that to somebody else,
know what?
an innocent person.
You know what I'll tell you is ignorance is bliss. It crosses the line when it gets into the whole, like, hepatitis B, all that gross stuff.
Just, I got to ask you. I wouldn't, we're friends, and I have to ask you, do you ever wonder if you've digested sperm before?
No, I don't. I never, ever think about that.
Like, you think somebody might
I never
spit
ever
in your
think
food?
about that, and I'm not going to walk out of this room. I'm never going to think about that. I'm going to stay blissfully ignorant.
See, because I've thought about, like, man, what if somebody spit in my food? What if they did that into like a salad or like?
When you think about that, I feel like
What do you do?
You've wanted to do that to somebody.
No, because I've seen the videos. It's disgusting that somebody would do that because I've seen. Have you ever seen the videos where the guys pee in their employees' coffee and they do all that kind of stuff? Those behind the scenes gotcha videos. Oh my God, they're so gross and so disgusting. People peeing and urinating in their employees' coffee. Oh, it's just like you see a pot of coffee. How could you piss in it? But people are doing weird stuff. Why? If you're disgruntled, just leave. Just leave. Don't spit in it. Because think about it. Your kid's going to start going to Tigers games. My kid's going to start going to more games. I can't handle the notion of somebody disrespecting and violating me that way. It's just so gross.
It is very gross. And it is.
And there might be, Jason, there might be more than a 15% chance you and I have both ingested,
I'm not even going to think about that. I'm not going to register that. I'm blocking that from my memory.
You're like, I can't believe I podcast with the guy who would ask me that. So
I feel like the other guy's back.
All right, Jason. It was such a great time to record with you. 45 minutes just flew by. Oh, we got to do this more often. It's really fun talking sports with you. I think you and I are in the same boat regarding the Lions and Michigan State. From today, we realized that, you got to be cautiously optimistic with the Lions game to game always. And with Michigan State, as long as Dave Warner's at the helm of that offense, you and I are both going to be looking at that organization, Michigan State football, a little bit crooked and very critical because we don't see them taking the next step under the regime of Dave Warner and whoever else is calling the offensive plays. Disappointing.
Indeed.
All right. For Jason Jarvie, you can follow him on Twitter at Jarvie the King, and you can follow the network and message anytime at Detroit Podcast. Feel free to leave a voicemail, 248-579-8686. You've listened to the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Later.
Okay, nice idiot. F you. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.